Welcome to another episode of Deeper Into the Woods, the podcast, the vlog, the video, the Instagram, whatever.
What is this?
Whatever this is that you're watching right now or listening to, it's that. Welcome to Deeper Into the Woods. Man, today, so we're doing a little bit of just sort of a spontaneous podcast right now. We haven't really planned this out, but we wanted to have a conversation just kind of based on, if I can sum it up, kind of like where we fit in the marketplace of coffee. So we have like a pretty big spectrum of different types of places, and they've been called different things, you know, like coffee has just evolved
over time,
over the past, couple of decades.
Yep.
And at least the way that I would see it is you've got kind of a Starbucks, very corporate side over here.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh yeah, even more like a Dunkin' Donuts.
I would take it over there,
like like a fast, cheap
drip coffee.
Yeah. So very non-specialty, just actually pretty basic cup of coffee.
And really low cost. You can get a cup of coffee really low
Maybe
cost.
even like a diner, like that kind of side.
Yep.
All the way over, you swing the pendulum all the way over to the high-end, high-scoring, really dialed in, award-winning coffees that some shops will only serve the highest quality coffee,
Right.
And it's usually quite a bit more expensive, but it's really good,
Yep.
And
they're putting the care into every cup. It's a slow process. It's a pour over, maybe it's an AeroPress.
Yeah.
It's the different brew methods.
It's all about making sure it's perfect and the best cup of coffee you've ever tasted in your life, which we enjoy.
And you're not going to put cream and sugar in it.
No, of course not.
You're going to just enjoy it for what it is in its pure form.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about like more like the science side and the coffee sourcing side and all that with our director of coffee, Shay, in a previous podcast. You can go check that out. So we won't talk too much about that side of it, but more like the kind of where we fit in that spectrum, because I wouldn't say we're on either end. I think we're somewhere in the middle. And we sort of have come, to this place, not necessarily on purpose, but sort of through the different things that we value.
Yeah,
right?
and through a journey of starting when we started in 2002, coffee wasn't what it is today.
Right.
Coffee was Starbucks. That was the primary place people are drinking coffee, and or drive-through kiosks. But you're primarily drinking a very milky, sugary drink. At that point in time, Starbucks Frappuccino was a really big thing.
Yeah.
And so how we started was we were kind of almost trying to like match Starbucks or mirror what they were doing, because that was sort of just what coffee was and how it was viewed at that time.
They were the industry leader back then.
And then all these other sort of coffee shops started coming into play with the specialty high-end stuff. So then it was like, do we go more that direction? Do we stay more Starbucks? Do we find our place in the middle? And that's sort of where, through process, over time, we've landed where we have, where we're not serving a really, really dark, bitter espresso. We're trying to serve something that's a little bit more approachable, and maybe doesn't need to be masked with a bunch of sugar, but we're also not serving a light roast single origin espresso or having a list of varieties of coffee to choose from and that sort of model. So we kind of have found this place in between.
Yeah.
I actually heard a really fun story about coffee this morning. It was actually from the guy who does dairy distributing, who just distributes milk around Whatcom and Skagit County.
Yeah.
And he was talking about back in the mid 80s, there was a Nordstrom, called something like Nordstrom 2 is what they were called at the time. And there was one downtown Bellingham. And the owner of that store called him up one day and said, "Hey, I need you to deliver me some milk." And Bob, the owner of Dairy Distributing, said, "Aren't you a clothing store?" And the guy who owns the clothing store says, yeah, but we're going to start serving espresso drinks in our store. And, in that time it was like, what? The question's like, what are you trying to do? Coffee in a clothing store? Like, this is odd. So Bob shows up with the milk and the guy asks him to fill the cooler. And Bob's thinking like, really? Like, I'm not sure you're going to go through this milk. It's probably going to go bad. So he does. And then the man who owns the clothing store says, do you want to try an espresso? Because at that point, Bob hadn't tried an espresso.
Didn't know what it was.
He didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
So the man serves him just a shot of espresso. So he tries that and he's like, people are not going to buy this.
What is this?
What is this that I'm drinking here? But I just thought that was a really fun story. And then, of course, it did well. It was a kiosk inside Nordstrom. They were, the first to sell cafes to start that. But that was in the mid-'80s. So it's kind of the introduction of espresso drinks, lattes and that sort of thing in that setting.
Yeah, isn't it funny to think, like, it wasn't a way of life back then.
No.
Like, it was just kind of emerging.
Right.
But now, you fast forward now, it's like, dude, you don't see people walking around without a cup of coffee in your hand now. Like,
everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows what espresso is. Everyone knows what a latte is.
And if you're going somewhere to study or if you're going to be spending any sort of time working on a project, like, it's going to be in a coffee shop.
Right.
It's going to be, with coffee, like, right beside your computer doing something, right?
Exactly.
Like, always. And so it's just kind of a weird, thought to think that didn't exist.
Exactly. Yep. So it's kind of fun, interesting, thinking back and
so
how much it's evolved.
I mean, so we kind of evolved too. I mean, Starbucks was kind of like the leading edge, and that's like kind of what you would hear. Like, they were like the first wave of like coffee, and then kind of the second wave of like all the littler shops that kind of pop up, like little drive-throughs and things like that.
Right.
And then you've got third wave, which is more like the specialty side, like the more time-taking, really an emphasis really on the coffee itself.
Right.
And we are kind of straddling those two sides because we do really care a lot about the coffee quality, but at the same time we put a high emphasis on speed and efficiency as well, and we're trying to do both really well. And so at Woods Coffee, you can order a pour over or a slower kind of processed, really good cup of coffee, or you can get the milkshake,
right? Yeah.
Both. And so we are sort of straddling those two worlds, and it's kind of a weird place to be, honestly, because we're not one or the other. We're kind of both. And so I think there's different camps of people that would look at us as the opposite. Like, the people who are super into specialty coffee would probably look at us and go, oh, they're just like Starbucks. Right. But the people who are like more into like the sugary drinks like that say, oh, they're more like a specialty coffee place,
Right.
And so we're in this middle ground where we almost don't know how to define it, which is kind of cool, and which is kind of how.
Yeah, and I think that for us, we want to serve everybody. Yeah. We want a drink. We want to be able to serve something everyone wants. You can come into our store and find something you enjoy and like, and we're still pulling a real shot of espresso. It's not out of an automatic machine.
Right.
We're still timing shots and trying to perfect the craft of being a barista, while still doing it in a fast way, right? We try still to be fast and efficient. We have the drive-through model. People want to get in and out, grab their cup of coffee in the morning, and we have that element to it as well. So I think we really do try to be that middle of the road.
And we're kind of chasing the impossible. Honestly, we're trying to chase something that might not exist, but we're trying to get as close to that thing that doesn't exist as possible.
Right.
Where it's like a really good cup of coffee, fast. It's like, wait, what? That's like totally an oxymoron.
Right.
But there is a balance in there, and we're trying to find that balance.
Yeah, find that balance.
And so it's just an interesting world to be in.
It is. The other thing that's changed a lot in our industry from the time we started is food.
Oh, yeah, food.
A coffee shop used to be you go for coffee. You might grab a scone or a muffin from a coffee shop. Something quick, always morning, always a sweet pastry, really. Like, that's all that really existed. And that's evolved so much over the last 17 years, where now we're doing double the food sales as a percentage of sales than we were starting out. Yeah. And now we have breakfast sandwiches are like big, right? And that wasn't really a thing. We started breakfast sandwiches we didn't even make breakfast sandwiches when we started. Now breakfast sandwiches are huge. People even coming in for a snack or lunch is grown a lot.
How big are these breakfast
And now,
sandwiches?
yeah, they're huge.
They're huge.
We sell a lot of them.
We sell a lot of breakfast
We sell a lot of breakfast sandwiches. And now, the expectation on food is there.
Yeah.
Now it's almost every guest in a morning time period is getting coffee and food.
Yeah, it's breakfast. Like
Where that used to just be, I come to get my drink in the morning, but I have
after
already
I
eaten
ate breakfast. Yeah.
Now and I think it's also the faster pace that we live at. We live at a fast pace now in our just society. Most people are running quick. They're dropping off kids at school. They're getting to work early. They're in a hurry, where we try to fill that gap. And the cool thing about what we've done with food over time is chosen to open our own bakery for a very specific purpose. We really just couldn't get the food we wanted, the quality food we wanted anywhere else, which kind of just forced us to say, okay, we're going to make our own food because we want it to be really high quality, really pure natural ingredients, and we want it to be fresh every day in our stores. We're going to have to figure out how to do this. And then through that, I think that's part of why the food has grown, and it's also just grown as an industry standard where you're going to get food with coffee.
Yeah.
And that's now just the norm.
Yeah, and I think a little bit, even what we're doing today with a bakery that is producing, like what you're saying, like really fresh, really good quality pastries and baked goods and sandwiches. But even with roasting and sourcing coffee from single farms as much as possible and have traceable coffee. Like all those things are now sort of normal to us. But really, if you think about it, and I was just thinking about this as you were talking, and I think you said this maybe a couple of days ago, we are legitimately like disrupting the market. We're disrupting the things that are normal. Right. Because we're always going to, and we are chasing after that dream scenario in everything we do. Like we want, like this muffin should taste better. Like let's make one. Like let's make it as good as it could possibly be. And we're dedicated to doing that.
We're always trying to elevate what we're doing. We're not ever okay with where we're at. Yeah. So it's saying, okay, we've arrived there. We're good. We're like, nope, we can do better.
It doesn't exist.
We can do it better. We can do it better. We can do it better. So we're always increasing the quality of what we're doing in our work or in our products, which, that's the difference.
Which kind of is not fun. Right. It's not fun to do that all the time. But at the same time, that is the thing that is driving our company forward. Exactly. It's like the engine and the mechanism that's moving us. And that's just kind of been a family value like forever. Like there's something you could work on today to make tomorrow even better. Right. And same thing.
And we're really never okay with saying, well, we just do it that way because that's the way we've always done it. That's like not an accepted answer around here. It's like, no, we got to challenge that. What are we going to do different? How can we do it better?
Like I know we used to do that, but what can we do now?
Right. Yeah. Yep. And you just keep improving upon what we have. And now that's in our culture. And so everyone's operating with that in mind and really always trying to figure out new and exciting things and ways to do things. And it's kind of also gets an excitement around it sometimes, right? So it's fun.
Yeah, we definitely try to elevate the bar, like in everything. And I think our guests, and I think, people who are fans of Woods, like they do that too. Like they have come to expect like what we do. Yeah. And it sort of like gets us in trouble a little bit. We're like, all right, like let's push the bar higher. And then like the guests are like, well, you pushed the bar higher, so it needs to at least stay there. You need to go even higher. Yeah. And like, so the expectation keeps going up and up and up. And like, sometimes I wonder like, man, okay, how far up, like where is the bar going to like, where we can't reach it anymore, but we're still, that, we're doing like I said, that dream scenario, that impossible, can we grasp the impossible? Can we actually get there? And that sounds lofty and sort of, out there and arbitrary, but really like, what is just a little next thing that we could make just a little bit better that moves the bar a little bit. And it was like hundreds of those little bits that have now, made the company what it is today and made us keep going and keep striving for something better.
Absolutely.
And so, what are some things now that, we're trying to push the bar on? Like what's what's in your mind now? You know, I can probably think of a couple, but
yeah. On the top of my head right now, I mean, it's again with the food, it's still evolving, it's still growing, it's still the expectation is changing, I think, and we want to make sure that we're ahead of whatever's next, right? Because also in our industry with coffee and with food, it's whatever the next trend is, there will be a next trend. Whether it's the, you know, what's the popular diet right now? We have to be like ahead of that and have something ready for that.
Yeah, keto or
yeah.
whatever.
So how what are we offering those people? I think for me, it's elevating that again, just saying what's next. What do we need to grow in? What can we do better at, again, in our food and our coffee? Even as we constantly are upping our game on processes with brewing coffee and making drinks, our baristas, you know, just making sure that we're always doing it the best we can. If we find out new information, we need to do something different, then we just change it.
Yeah.
So for me, there's a lot within that. What were the things you were thinking of?
Well, I mean, I mentioned keto, you know, like if we could jump on that keto bandwagon and maybe just like serve a stick of butter, you know, and just but make it the best stick of butter you've ever eaten, you know?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
No, I mean, for us, I mean, like just thinking about the horizon, I mean, we're in an interesting place as a company right now, like, you know, almost 20 years in, 17, coming on 18 years in. We're starting to ask the questions. It's like, okay, what's next for the company? And we're starting to sort of outgrow our old clothes. Like, I don't know how to say that different, but like our clothes don't fit anymore. Our processes are too small. Right. Now, the things that we've created, we've outgrown, and we're trying to keep up with all that. And so I feel like we're in this place where we either need to like double down and like invest in process and infrastructure, or you know, we slim things down. Like we're like in this weird
what's
zone.
Next for us, right? We're gonna keep growing, and I think of course we're gonna keep growing. We've never said we're gonna stop. But yeah, I think for us, it's evaluating how big, how fast, what are we going to do? And if that's true, if we're going to grow, you know, if we're going to try to grow faster, more stores per year, that looks different than, you know, hey, let's just open a store per year and kind of take this slow. Yeah. What's next for us is going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. And it naturally does. Yep. It kind of unfolds on its own, and the pathway forward sort of exposes itself as you take little steps. Yep. You know, it's like you have like a flashlight in the forest that you don't really know what's out there, but you're just going one step at a time. Yep. Yeah, and that's also kind of what keeps it exciting too. Right.
And we can't predict the future. You know, if we 17 years ago would have said, okay, that's what we're going to be in 17 years, you know, we probably would have never thought we'd be where we're at. Even the industry changes. We don't have a way to predict that. We can try. Yeah. But
I think the industry's changing right now.
It's changing all the time.
We know that we have to pivot. Yep. Some direction, because it's like the coffee industry is not the same as what it was even 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. Like, it's different today. It's going to be different tomorrow. Right. And just really pivoting with the wave of momentum rather than, you know, trying to stick it out with what we've always done. Like, that's not going to work, for one. And number two, like, that's just not who we are. We evolve and we push the boundaries for what's possible, and we'll continue to do that. So yeah, the future, who knows?
Future is unknown.
We don't know where the industry's going. There's definitely a way bigger emphasis on like the specialty side of coffee, and we are in this sort of middle zone. So we're gonna have to find our place. Yeah.
With what the guest wants. Really, it goes back to what the guest wants. If the guest is demanding something of us, we will always accommodate and we'll always adapt. And if we hear, you know, the majority of people saying we want something new and this is what it is, then of course we'll do that. Yep. So we just really have to keep our eyes and ears out and listen to what people want and look and see what direction the industry is going, and we should be all right.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's about what people actually want. It doesn't really matter what we want. Right.
I think we always had this fear of, we're in Whatcom County, we're local, everyone knows who we are. We started in Linden. To like make the jump to Bellevue was kind of this scary, like, okay, we're going to go for it and we don't know what's going to happen.
Will we be accepted?
Yeah, but the coolest part about that was how accepted we were. Our brand has been embraced there. probably even better than I could have expected.
Yeah.
And people just love what they're getting. They love that we're genuine and care about them, even though they're in a big city where everyone's running around, and you don't get a lot of that. We care about them. We're serving them an amazing cup of coffee. They're getting food. The food part actually down there really blew up. We do higher food sales there than any other stores, because people constantly coming in saying, we can't get this kind of food anywhere else. Like, and they don't even know why at that point. They don't know we bake our own stuff. They don't know that we're delivering it every night.
They don't even know where it comes from,
probably. They have no idea, but they know, you can tell the difference when you taste it, when you're eating the food. You're like, okay, I can't get this anywhere else, and it tastes so good. And then they find out why, and then it all makes sense. But I'd say, yeah, the Bellevue area and now Bothell, I mean, we're accepted with open arms. People love what we're doing, and they might not even know who we are yet. We get the question down there a lot, like, is this your first store? You know, and then we get the opportunity to share our story and do those sort of things, but
people are surprised, whoa, like
right.
19 store or whatever.
But I think it's refreshing for a lot of guests that we have down there that it's something different. They might have the chains, the coffee shop chains down there. They're kind of come to expect what they're getting from those, and there's a new something else new in the marketplace, and then they're really liking what they're getting in our stores. And that, I think the connection of like the fast, quick coffee food situation, but yet I'm getting maybe a beverage that tastes a little bit more high quality than some of the others, but I'm also not going into necessarily a shop that it's going to take a while and I'm getting a pour over and I'm going to sit and enjoy it. I'm still on the go, but I'm still able to get that really high quality drink and food. That's sort of what I've realized through that transition of going down south.
Yeah, and I don't think it really even stops there. I mean, I think, in this episode, we've talked a lot about coffee and food, but man, I think what trumps all of that actually is like the people. Yeah. Like our staff is amazing. Like they're just so good. And a lot of it comes back to culture. And I think if you come across a Woods Coffee in a more like populated metropolitan area like Bellevue, or even Bothell, I think you're just used to a little bit more of like the fast pace, like feeling like you're a number a little bit. Yeah, you're feeling more processed things like you're a number, like you're used to lines, you're used to like waiting, traffic, and you're used to things that have been made that way, like fast and packaged and whatnot. I mean, granted, there's obviously really good food in a bigger city too, right? And so I think that was probably something that we were worried about. Like the competition feels like it should be higher because in the city, like I feel like people tend to spend a little more. There's like higher incomes. Yep. But really, above all of that stuff, like we could compare it all. But really, I think our people are what stand out. And I think it's shocking to most people who come through our stores as to how they're treated. Like they're treated really well, and like it's almost like this, whoa, like oh, you care about me. Well, and I can imagine it's sort of like, do you really care about me? Right. There's like this like they're trying to feel it out at first, Yeah. But then like day after day, like they're like these baristas are like happy and they're smiling at me and like they're learning my name and what my drink is and stuff, and it's like, whoa, I think that's the difference, really. That's what people. And then the product is just there as almost icing on the cake. I'm having this great experience here. You actually care about me. Oh, and I can get a great cup of coffee and I can get a good breakfast. It's the whole package. Yeah. And I think that's the difference. And that's, if we come full circle, right? Like you're talking about like just obliterating the bar for food, pushing the boundaries on coffee and what's expected, and then all of that with like someone who actually really genuinely cares about how you feel when you leave this place. Those three things together are magic. They are. Like they really are. Yeah. But it's so simple. Right. But magic. And it takes a lot of work to get all of those three things together. And that's why we're so tired at the end of the day or whatever. But those three things make Woods what it is, especially in an area where it doesn't exist yet, or it hasn't been the norm for 10, 15 years, like Linden, where we started. I feel like that is the norm in Linden, like people have known about us for 17 years, and it's like that's just what a coffee shop is,
Yep.
you know. But you go into Bellevue and it's like there's nothing like this,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And so who knows, in the next 20 years it's like, oh yeah, that's just what coffee is, right? And so I love that, like we have set the standard in our hometown, and so I think now it's like we just keep pushing beyond.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
Let's reinvent the standard.
And that's really what keeps us going. That's what keeps it exciting and fresh. And we want to get into new communities and just wow them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the best, right? When you get like that email or that social media comment or whatever it is, like, what is this place, you know? Like,
yeah.
And then they start raving about those 3 things we talk about. And it's like, okay, it's working, you know?
Totally.
Yeah. So anyways, I think that was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was great.
Figuring out, I mean, kind of where we fit in the market. And
we're still figuring it out.
we will always be.
We'll always be figuring it out.
Evolving. But hopefully that gives, you know, our listeners, our viewers, a little bit of an inside look into like where we see ourselves and like where we see, you know, the future of where we're going to be and how we approach all of those things. So anyways, thanks so much for listening, watching, and make sure you are subscribing, reviewing, leave us a 5-star review, do whatever you need to do, share it with friends. We're just stoked to have you here either way. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.